and it's Alan Foster who, as president, is going to lead this, effectively this last session here, which is pretty much an open mic. It's really talking to, we always try now to recognise and acknowledge the geographical location that we're in. Kantara's doing more of that in different parts of the world, and we try and put that into a sort of a small plenary type context to allow you folks to have your say, to ask what we should we do better, suggest things, and it's pretty much an open thing, but we've given you some thoughts here to stimulate that conversation. So over to you, Alan. Thank you.
So this is when you guys are supposed to, now you guys get to talk and we get to listen. Any hands shooting up? We'll come straight off to you. A couple of the things that I want to just try and talk about. Ian had mentioned earlier about the meetups and the identity meetups that are happening around the world. And one of the things that is a really good thing for those of us in Kantara and members of Kantara is get involved in those, right? Because there's a lot of things there that are being discussed. I know that here in the US there are identity meetups in most of the big cities, or at least in sort of the areas around those. And so get involved in them. There's a lot of the kind of discussion that we have here in those kind of meetups. If there isn't one around near you, it's a little bit harder work, but think about starting one, right? Because there is a lot of that, and when you do that, there is a lot of support and a lot of backing that you can get from a lot of the identity vendors in the space. Presentations and funding and various things like that to try and help with that. So I would definitely encourage the issue around the meetups. I'm going to go into another sort of announcement and a discussion around that, and that is Kantara is also working with Kupinja Cole. So Kupinja Cole are the analysts who run the European Identity Conference at the end of May. It gives most of us an excuse to go over and drink big vats of beer. It works well with blockchain, actually. But Kupinja Cole has a, Colin, help me with the name of it. It's their World Tour
Of Consumer Identity.
CIAM, right? It's the CIAM World Tour, which Kupinja Cole started last year in Paris in about October, November kind of time frame, which had quite a lot of impact in it. This year, Kantara is going to be, assuming we can get the paperwork and stuff sorted out, Kantara is going to be co-hosting 3 of those events around the world. One in Seattle, September, help me again?
Auspicious, September 11.
September 11, and the actual conference is 3 days up in Seattle, so we'll be doing the first day, and then Kupinja Cole will be taking the other 2 days. We've got another one, which is a redo of the Paris one, which is going to happen, I believe, the week after Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
like the 27th, 28th or so.
November.
And the final one is in Singapore, the week of the 6th,
Yes.
5th and 6th, somewhere around about there. So there's these 3 events, which obviously the issue around trust, identity, privacy, all of these kinds of things, which are core values deeply held in Kantara, are becoming more and more real within this consumer identity space. And we're seeing a lot of interesting groups, the GSMA kinds of groups and mobile ecosystem framework and people like that who are driving towards that. So if you are either in Seattle or want to come to Seattle in September, absolutely think about coming up to that. It's on their Kupinja Cole website. I think it's, is it KC or? I think it's either KC or Kupinja Cole, and it'll find it straight up on Google. Other than that, those are the 2 main pieces. So any questions, thoughts, or comments from anybody out sitting here in the audience? I'm standing between us and lunch, right? That's the... Yes.
Harvey. Yes.
can't hear. Hey, how you doing? I see a lot of friends here. That's cool. Hey, Arthur, where are the city chapters now? And
We
could I
don't
hear
have
about
any
them?
city chapters or anything at this
So
point.
I would be the
with
first.
that.
I would be the
You
first.
would be the first. So one of the things that we have is we have some concentrations of members that are sort of around. Obviously, there's a bunch of us down in the Bay Area. There's a healthy group of folks up in Seattle. And I know those two because I live on that side of the country. So there are sort of some concentrations of it, but this was one that we've been talking about and saying, is it something that would be worthwhile for us to actually get folks who are physically located in cities and sort of living near each other to find out who each others are and put some kind of chapter together?
So, and yes, so I can see that would be kind of difficult starting that off in mass. But if we were to use it as a subset, say, of Osaka, I'm involved with Osaka in Houston, I would imagine we could find some dual members there, if you would, people who would be interested in this. So I would like to chat about that and maybe start that.
Yeah, that would be wonderful, right? As you say, if there's an existing ecosystem, which is sort of why I was going for the identity meetups.
Exactly.
Those kinds of ecosystems, absolutely, I think we can piggyback on top of that.
Absolutely. For example, I've advertised those meetups when they happen, and some of our members go there. So I think that is I want to follow up on that.
Absolutely. Colin would love to share a beer and talk about it.
Another reason to talk to Colin. I love it. Thank you.
Any other thoughts around? Yes.
This is a follow-up on Harvey's comment. Lance Peterman with Merck. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we have call it an infant group in Charlotte. As you mentioned, Alan, Radiant Logic has been generous enough to help sponsor it. It's just an IAM user group, but one of the things that I've been kind of leaning on Ian a little bit on the ID Pro side, and then seeing this in the Kantara context. The thing that group struggles with, and I'm not going to pretend to speak for other city groups, but I know with some of my colleagues that are like in the Philadelphia and the New Jersey area have similar issues, is content. Because there's a bright line that you can't cross, and Radiant Logic does a fantastic job of really keeping their hands off of the group from a vendor presentation perspective, because if these meetings become nothing more than vendor demos, then they typically die a painful death. And we've been able to sustain it thus far. We're in our second year, but would a partnership with Kantara, with respect to that, offer the ability to somehow generate more content for the individual user community with respect to that? Because I think one of the challenges from an ISACA and what we have active in Charlotte is we have ISSA and we have ISC squared, which obviously have a huge InfoSec overlap, but none of them have any type of an identity focus, and obviously that's part of the genesis behind the ID Pro piece as well. So I would be curious to find out what suggestions you might have on addressing that.
Well, certainly, what Kantara's not short of content. We're 12 working groups and more to come. I'm sure that we could leverage that in some way. Ideally, perhaps with working group members, either Kantara members or non-member participants in working groups and discussion groups being able to share their thoughts. So that's a good thought, Lance. Thank you.
It may make sense for us to sort of try and have a look to see if there's some kind of recipe or something that we can use to try and put that content in a form that can be easily leveraged in a group like that. And I get your point as far as vendors are concerned, right? Because obviously vendors are there to make money. When I put my vendor hat on, obviously we want to come and talk. Yes, we'll talk about the industry and how well we fit into it. But yeah, it is a fine line when vendors come in. However, the other side of that is that reaching out to vendors for presentations, as long as it's not the same vendor every month, And you make it clear, I mean, even at events like this, vendors are told, come and talk about things, but this is not a sales pitch, so don't do the sales pitch. The vendors do have a lot of good content, and one of the nice things about that is that they also have travel budgets, where members of our working groups don't necessarily have. And so they can actually come out and help. Oh, Andrew wants to talk.
So the local groups would be a great way to test out the body of knowledge for ID Pro.
I completely agree, and I've been waiting for something to present, not necessarily from the body of knowledge perspective, but to pitch ID Pro. I keep planting seeds at each of our we only meet quarterly, so it's not like, we're meeting monthly and running out of things to do. I wish that were happening, but, would be a pleasant problem to have.
Yeah, because with ID Pro, I'm one of the leads on the body of knowledge development part of it. We've got the taxonomy of all things you should know, but no content, because that's going to take a lot of time and effort to do. But having a focused talk on something, maybe if a couple of vendors get together to do it, and then we could use that to plug into elaborating on different areas in the body of knowledge.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great idea.
Cool. Other comments, questions, thoughts?
Jean-François Lombardo from Montreal. In fact, what you said is very interesting, because even if you only meet quarterly, you have a strong feedback and expertise on what's good and what's wrong in order to run a city chapter or meetings or things like that. Because we are currently thinking about how to start something like that into Montreal. We hit the same pain point as you, as trying to foresee all the content we will have into the future, just to be sure that we start something that we are capable of keeping moving. But maybe into the ID Pro, everything that you said and all the expertise you have from your previous presentation can act as some body of knowledge on how to start and to maintain a city chapter. So I may be interested to talk to you in order to know how to start this. Thank you.
It sounds to me like what we may want to end up doing is putting something up on the website around, city chapter, and causing this discussion and any kind of collateral and content and stuff that can be helped to put those kind of things together. It's the rules.
Rules and tools. This is a tool for the rule. So I just wanted to echo what you had said about bringing in vendors. You let them know, hey, let's talk about this generically. Let's don't do a sales pitch, but they can really make a difference. I mean, you can get a lot of speakers this way. That's a way to jumpstart it. I echo that. That's it.
Not only do you get speakers that way, but you get people who will buy food and drink, which is actually a really important aspect when it comes down to this, because if you offer free food and drink, people will show up. It's a great way to do that.
So, any other last thoughts? I have buttons and banner badges. Last call.
So before you do that, just one of the other aspects around it is throughout the conference, if you do any tweeting, and I know there's lots of people who've been tweeting out in the frontier, if you're tweeting, utilize the Kantara hashtag, use the
Kantara News.
At Kantara News, all of these kinds of things, because one of the things that we need to constantly try and do is build visibility and raise visibility and get people to know who we are. And so if you're at a conference, even if you're the only one there from Kantara, go ahead and post around Kantara if there's something that's interesting or in the Kantara space, because the other members will see that and it builds that worldwide community that we're going for. So I guess we're done. So
I think we are.
I'll sit down and you can say thank you.
Well, I'm saying it now. So thank you ever so much, folks. I appreciate that we've given you a little bit more time back. So enjoy lunch. We've got a fantastic afternoon of keynotes going, but do appreciate I really do appreciate your attendance this morning. It's been a great interactive group, as well as displaying our wares, laying out our table of goods. So thank you so much. Remember that, we are only as good as the members and the volunteer efforts that make it possible. So please contribute, please join, please direct your funds, think about the ideas that you want to see flow through Kantara, from working groups and discussion groups up through conformity assessment programs. Use the platform, use the programs. That's what we're here to do, and we're here to serve you. Thank you.
And I just want to echo one of the things that you said in there. One of the ways that Kantara is able to fund doing these things is by doing the assessment and the conformance assessments. If you are working in an industry, or you can see something in real life that can benefit from having some kind of conformance assessment, we have the framework and can put into that. And so start looking into that is there a trust ecosystem that you need to try and build? Leverage Kantara to be able to do that. We will benefit from getting the income out of it, and you benefit by having a sort of industry trust mark on that, rather than something that's run individually. As well as working in the working groups. If there's some technology or some idea that you want to be able to work on, come and work on it within Kantara, because you see the breadth and the range of topics that we're actually working on. There's always space for more. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.